Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked where I climb the online Series 13 ladder and provide live commentary as I go. Today we're featuring a team that has Choice Scarf Lunala, a set that practically nobody uses on the online ladder. And so, yeah, this team is really interesting. It was built by a Japanese player called Akaza, who I've linked down in the description below. There's a rental and a pace for the team down there if you want to try it out yourselves. And as always, I'll do a quick breakdown of the team, but if you want to just skip to the battles, check out the timestamps in the description below. Thank you so much as always for watching. If you enjoy, please share support by leaving a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. And question of the day, I want to know what your favorite surprise Choice Scarf user is with us using Choice Scarf Lunala. So let's quickly talk about the team. First of all, when I say no one uses Choice Scarf Lunala, I really mean it. This is Lunala's Pokedex page on Calyrex, which is a website that aggregates statistics for VGC. And if you look at it, most of the Lunalas in the format are powered. You've got a couple of Lumberry and Colbur berries, and Choice Scarf isn't even in the item usage here, right? And so this team is very heavily centered around Choice Scarf Lunala, providing very unexpected speed control via Icy Wind. And so, yeah, I wasn't joking when I say no one really uses this set at all. So part of the theory here is that very few people expect Choice Scarf from Lunala, and with the Choice Scarf and Timid Max Speed, you outspeed pretty much everything in the format other than Regieleki, but Regieleki just isn't really that common anymore compared to previous formats. And so the idea is that you've got Icy Wind for speed control, right? And Icy Wind in itself is such an effective means of speed control, Moongeist Beam just for, main means of damage, and then you've got support in Wide Guard and Trick Room as well. I think having Trick Room on this is really interesting because it seems kind of counterintuitive with the Choice Scarf, but the idea here is you can lead something like Lunala Calyrex, Lunala Palkia, maybe your opponent's fear Trick Room, but you could either, go with the Icy Wind route. A lot of players, when they see this team, expect it solely to be a Trick Room team, but you actually have, a decent amount of speed as well. One thing I do want to caveat with here is that obviously Choice Scarf Lunala is a huge element of surprise. It's something that people don't really expect, but I think now that this team is, publicized a little bit more, if you use it, maybe people will recognize that it's Choice Scarf because they've seen the video or they've run into the team, right? And so it does diminish its value a little bit. But that being said, I think, yeah, if you are able to catch your opponents off guard with it, it can really pay off huge dividends. So one lead that I really like with this team is Lunala plus Yveltal. This is just an Assault Vest Yveltal. As you'll see, this team actually invests really heavily in speed. You've got Max Speed Yveltal here, Admit Max Speed Zacian here, Jolly Max Speed Calyrex-I Rider here, and then Modest Max Speed Palkia. And then part of the reason for this is because you really want to take advantage of Lunala's Icy Wind speed drops, and because the Scarf Icy Wind basically just completely catches people off guard, right? Like, first of all, they say Lunala, they don't expect Icy Wind, and they certainly don't expect to see Icy Wind before they even get an attack off. And so the idea is with this Choice Scarf, you can get some really big surprise KOs, Icy Wind, and then just using one of your powerful attackers to try to pick up a knockout, right? So these Pokemon are all relatively straightforward. This is a Assault Vest Yveltal with max speed. This is Zacian, Adamant, but you've got, a fair amount of HP bulk, which helps you survive opposing Behemoth Blades from opposing Zacians. The key thing to note here is instead of a fighting type attack or a wild charge, you've got quick attack just to really finish things off. And then I think the more interesting member here is probably the Jolly Max Speed Calyrex-I Rider. This is really nice because with the speed boost or a speed drop on the opposing end, you can outspeed a fair amount of Pokemon like Kyogre and Groudon, for example, and really catch them off guard. We've used Max Speed Calyrex before, but mainly in the context of like Tailwind teams. This team doesn't have Tailwind, but after 2 speed boosts, the Calyrex will essentially outspeed everything you'll run into other than, Regieleki, basically. So 2 is like the critical number for Calyrex to really outpace everything, but even a single speed drop or increase can allow Calyrex to outspeed a lot of the Pokemon like the base 90 plus range. And then so you've got Palkia here. This is pretty standard as well, but instead of Max Quake or Earth Power, you have Fire Blast, which gives you just a little bit more coverage, and then no Trick Room either, so it just has Protect. And then the final member here is just an Amoonguss. The Amoonguss is nice into opposing Trick Room teams, and it also means you can lead with Trick Room, right? Like you can threaten Trick Room with Calyrex Amoonguss, Lunala Amoonguss, for example. But honestly, in my experience using this team, I actually barely click Trick Room because it actually is a fairly speedy team, but it's just disguised in a way that your opponents don't expect it to, right? With this team, you're going to Dynamax Palkia and Yveltal most of the time. Calyrex can max as well, but I actually prefer not maxing this Calyrex frequently because of the Focus Sash. Like, I like just getting 2 Glacial Lances off with it. Yveltal and Palkia are both really consistent Dynamax options, but Calyrex and Lunala, of course, can max in the right position as well. So I've defaulted very heavily to Yveltal and Lunala as a lead. Opposing Zacians can be a little bit scary, right? So you can go for something like Lunala plus Palkia, Icy Wind, and just go for a Max Flare, for example. That's one mode you can go with. You can go with Lunala and Zacian, Icy Wind into a Behemoth Blade as well, for example. example. So Lunala leads really nicely with really all the restricteds here. And the main idea is to use Icy Wind and Moongeist Beam to catch your opponent off guard. One of the other benefits of Choice Scarf Lunala is it can clean up games, especially against like opposing Calyrex Shadow Riders, because with Shadow Shield and the HP and Special Defense investment, you can take an Astral Barrage if it's spread, survive with Shadow Shield, and then retaliate back with Moongeist Beam, right? Or I should say you Moongeist Beam first, they don't KO you, and then you Moongeist Beam again for a KO. So yeah, and of course, right now, one of the most common Pokemon in the format is going to be Calyrex Shadow Rider. So that's part of the theory behind Choice Scarf Lunala as well. So let's get into the battles. Our first game of the day, and we've got Whimsicott, Incineroar, Grimmsnarl with 3 restricteds, Calyrex, Zacian, and Magearna. It's almost like a Series 12 team, although, you know, actually, yeah, Calyrex, Zacian, Incineroar, Whimsicott was a pretty strong core. Grimmsnarl you actually don't see too often on those teams, just because, like, Light Clay Dual Screens isn't as valuable. Just curious about the set there. How do we want to approach this? I obviously got to be worried about Tailwind from Whimsicott. I have to say I'm slightly intrigued by the idea of actually leading Lunala, which could even Trick Room for us. And if they don't lead... Like, if they don't lead Whimsicott, can do some really interesting things. Because I can just Scarf Icy Wind. So, like, Lunala, Yveltal, Zacian. And Palkia seems okay. Yeah, I mean, I want to go with 4 restricteds here. Amoonguss has to worry about Taunt from Whimsicott and Max Starfall from Magearna. And I think I'd rather Dynamax Palkia than Calyrex in this matchup. Although Calyrex does have Focus Sash, so I can survive a Behemoth Blade from the Zacian. But I just really want to try out the Choice Scarf Lunala here, so that's my main incentive. And so, yeah, the question is whether or not they actually really want to bring Whimsicott, because, like, if you look at the team we're using, it looks like a more Trick Room-oriented team. So, like, do you really want to set up Tailwind? Looks like the answer is going to be yes, Whimsicott, Calyrex here. But Yveltal's in a pretty nice position. Honestly, so is Lunala here. Like, yeah, they're honestly in a pretty tricky spot here. I could try Trick Rooming with Lunala. There's a world in which they don't Tailwind. So I'm not completely opposed to just Icy Wind plus Snarl on turn 1 here. Because it's like, would you really want to Tailwind in front of this? Okay, Calyrex switches out, which is fine by me. And they bring out Magearna. Okay. So they could be setting up their own Trick Room. Okay, they actually just go for Protect on Whimsicott. I'm totally okay with that. Because the idea is just getting Snarls off in general into Magearna right now is super valuable for me, in my opinion. The awkward thing is they could actually set up Trick Room from this angle, but I'm okay with that. Like, we have Assault Vest, Yveltal, we can get you down to -2 special attack immediately. And I think this play makes a lot of sense for my opponent's end, because it's basically a hedge of me, like, potentially setting up Trick Room with the Lunala in this position. So I'm down to switch Lunala out now into Zacian. And then just go for another Snarl right now. I don't really need to knock out Whimsicott here, right? It could be tempting to stay in with Lunala and go for, like, Icy Wind plus the Oblivion Wing. But then Magearna maybe sets up Trick Room. Whimsicott gets a free switch out. KOing it, so my opponent would get a free switch in. Oh, they actually offered the Tailwind route. Okay, that works for me. Yeah, like, I'm still faster than Magearna because I had the speed drop onto it, so... Okay. And that's one of the nice things about Lunala. I think Choice Scarf plus Icy Wind is not a combination people really ever expect. And, ooh, okay, it's eject button here. That makes sense. But, like, Magearna's at -2 special attack, so, I mean, even if you're Flare Cannon, like, I don't think it's that scary. Being bring out there, Zacian. Okay. Yeah, I was definitely expecting them to maybe click Trick Room rather than Tailwind there. And they just offered Dazzling Gleam. Okay, works for me. I will say there, Zacian is in a fairly strong position right now, so I'm in a slightly weird spot. They could max Magearna from this angle, but you're at -2, so I don't think you really want to do that. I'm down to Behemoth Blade into Zacian here. I want to conserve Yveltal because it's so good against Whimsicott. Plus the, Yeah, it's super good against Whimsicott plus the Calyrex. I'm actually down to switch out the Yveltal in this position. Because if I also get enough damage on a Zacian, maybe it's just in Sucker Punch KO range, and that's also fairly valuable. Okay, Magearna switches. Maybe could have taken advantage of that, targeted that slot, but Whimsicott doesn't really apply that much offensive pressure, so I'm honestly okay with that. They're just going to offer Behemoth Blade. I guess the main question here is whether or not I would KO Zacian from the HP range that I'm at. Nice. We survive. Okay, that's huge. So the dynamic of my opponent's team is fairly interesting, right? Because on one hand, you have like Incineroar, Grimmsnarl, Magearna, which is like a super defensive core. And ooh, we almost KO Zacian. That's beautiful for us because I can finish it off with a quick attack here. The question is what I want to do with Lunala right now. I could even Trick Room, interestingly enough. 2 turns of Tailwind left. The thing is, if I Trick Room, their Magearna becomes a threat under Trick Room, and I don't love the idea of that. So I think here I'm content just clicking Quick Attack and then Moongeist Beam into Whimsicott. Maybe they protect Whimsicott, but no protect. Beautiful. This is where having Quick Attack is so nice as well. So immediately you can see some of the surprises coming up huge with this team. We do get a quick crit there, but I don't think that mattered. They just Moonblast. Perfect. Okay, into Zacian. Fine by me. Gives me a free switch in. That's going to be a KO. And I think Scarf Lunala actually can be really valuable for us in this endgame as well, because it's super, super good into just my opponent's team in general. And Moongeist Beam gets the KO. There actually was a debate to maybe not knock out Whimsicott there to deny my opponent like 2 free switch-ins, but given that we didn't see a Focus Sash on Whimsicott, we knew it was eject button. I think Sash being on Calyrex certainly is more likely here. What do I want to do in this position? I could bring out the Yveltal and just Snarl and switch Lunala out. The alternative was to bring out Palkia and maybe Dynamax it. The thing is, I have the element of surprise with Choice Scarf here, but they still have one more turn of Tailwind, so you have to be careful about that. Okay. I would also max Magearna from this angle if I were them. I'm also curious how fast Magearna is under Tailwind here. Yeah, it's the last turn. I mean, I'm down to Snarl here, and then I think switch Lunala out into Palkia. I guess the interesting thing is in doing this, like, who am I going to Dynamax, right? Because I could max Yveltal, Lunala, or Palkia from this angle. I think where things can go poorly here is that they just Astral Barrage, max Magearna, and then, like, Magearna's faster than Yveltal. Okay, so they're finally going to commit Dynamax. No surprise there. I don't know. It's worth thinking about maxing Yveltal here, I think, but a Snarl is so strong to both of these Pokemon right now. And they max Calyrex. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, it would make sense for them to try to go all in and go for, like, a max Phantasm here, I would think, onto the Lunala slot. And if I get Snarl off, then I just have Choice Scarf, Moongeist Beam, and tie their Pokemon, which is really sweet. Beautiful. They just Phantasm. Okay. Nice. I guess the fear... No, Dazzling Gleam should never KO Yveltal from this range, I don't think. They are faster with the Magearna, though. Okay, so enough speed investment to outspeed Yveltal under Tailwind. Which makes sense given the team that they have, I think, but that's fine by me. Okay, we get Snarl off. Cool. Crit onto Magearna, which is pretty lucky. So I can Dynamax either Pokemon right now. Tailwind also has petered out. Bring in Lunala. I could honestly just Moongeist Beam. Okay, I think here I'm down to Dynamax. Max Darkness into Magearna. And then just Moongeist Beam into Calyrex. I think Calyrex Max Guarding here makes sense, but then by Dynamaxing Yveltal, Dazzling Gleam won't KO us. And if you Trick Room, then Yveltal outspeeds Calyrex and just KOs you. Yeah, so I'm down for that. So just to reiterate, Dynamax, Max Darkness onto Magearna, which also gives us a special defense drop, and then Moongeist Beam here onto Calyrex. The other question is, yeah, is the Calyrex afraid of like a Sucker Punch here? Because that would be a reason to go for a Max Guard, but even though Max Darkness won't do much damage to Magearna, that's okay. I do think one thing in this game that's interesting is, like, I did Dynamax fairly late, right? Like, I'm Dynamaxing a Pokemon at under 50% at this point in the game, but I think it makes sense. Nice. And they don't Max Guard with Calyrex, and that is the beauty of Choice Scarf Lunala. But like I said, even if they Max Guarded, the Magearna's not picking up a KO onto either Pokemon with the Dazzling Gleam, so, like, the only play you could really go for is maybe a Trick Room. It does give Magearna a Soul Heart boost, but that's okay. We'll get a special defense boost or drop via Max Darkness, and then either Pokemon should get the KO onto it next turn. Okay. And I don't think a Dazzling Gleam is KOing Yveltal here. And yeah, they don't go for Trick Room. It's just Gleam. Beautiful. So I'm really glad that in our first game we already highlight how interesting Choice Scarf Lunala can be, right? Being able to outspeed Calyrex with the Choice Scarf is really nice. We can go for Special Max Darkness and just Moongeist Beam now. But yeah, I think what made this matchup interesting is my opponent having like a very fast mode with this Whimsicott, Zacian, and Calyrex, and then having a Magearna on the team. But it gives you the flexibility of both Trick Room and Tailwind, and we've seen a lot of Whimsicotts in this format carry both of those attacks, so it makes sense. Whimsicott did reveal Protect, Moonblast, and Tailwind, so I'm quite curious on what the last attack is, because like Switcheroo makes sense if you have Eject Button, which they did, but you don't necessarily need it. Sometimes people just like having Eject Button, so you get a free switch in if your opponent targets you, which is actually what ended up happening in this game. But yeah, we can actually answer that question here. So it was a Solvest Magearna. Oh, that is really interesting. Max, or I should say, yeah, it's modest max speed, not timid max speed. That's fascinating. That's my first time seeing Assault Vest. A Magearna and a fast one. Encore Whimsicott here. Focus Sash Calyrex. 4 attacks. Okay, so they actually could have Max Guard there in the end. Is modest as well rather than timid. Figgy Incineroar. Behemoth Blade, Solar Blade, Wild Charge, Quick Attack, Zacian. And then Lagging Tail Grimmsnarl with Trick. Okay, makes sense. So this team definitely has some surprises, right? Like 4 attack on Calyrex, 4 attack on Zacian. And them having the quick attack as well is interesting, but yeah, they probably weren't expecting it from our end, so that was huge in this game. And then the Assault Vest max speed Magearna as well. So yeah, really cool team here, but let's keep things going. Ooh, next game here, and it is another Whimsicott Calyrex Zacian team, this one with Zeraora, Shedinja, and Kyogre. This would be such an interesting matchup if they didn't have Whimsicott, because I think Choice Scarf Calyrex would actually just... Or not Calyrex, Choice Scarf Lunala could crush them. Shedinja's obviously annoying, but there's Foul Play on Amoonguss, Max Flare slash Flamethrower on Palkia. Lunala has Moongeist Beam. Yveltal has attacks as well. Also, I think I said Flamethrower on Palkia, I meant Fire Blast. Huh. I mean, if you're my opponent, you're probably worried about Trick Room, truthfully. I don't mind leading the Lunala here once again. Honestly, Lunala Palkia is kind of intriguing to me in this one. I actually think Lunala and Amoonguss is also interesting, but I guess then it's a fairly passive duo. I don't think we bring Calyrex in this one. Yeah, Amoonguss isn't terrible. But I could just go offensive, like Lunala, Yveltal lead, Zacian, Palkia, like the previous game. I don't know, I really like that mode, but I think Amoonguss makes a lot of sense here. I could drop Zacian for it, honestly. Alright, we'll give the little mushroom a chance here. Half the reason I'm actually bringing Amoonguss over Zacian here is because the Amoonguss can't do any... Or sorry, the Zacian can't do anything into Shedinja, whereas Amoonguss can foul play it. And having something that gives me an Amoonguss answer is always better than something that doesn't. And I don't think Zacian is actually that powerful in this matchup either, truthfully. Because, one, we're going up against a Kyogre. They're going to go with Zacian and Calyrex. Ooh, this is where Scarf Lunala is very interesting. Because I can just Icy Wind Snarl turn 1, and they're never going to expect that. I do think here, though, Calyrex protecting certainly makes some sense. Maybe even a foul play, play rough into Yveltal. So that's one thing to watch out for. We have a lot of options, that's for sure. I could also say, like, Trick Room and switch out into Amoonguss here. The question is, with Calyrex, how bold are you feeling? Because what I could do is just snipe you off with an Icy Wind plus a Snarl. But they could very easily just protect one Pokemon here. Like, protect the Calyrex. It's probably better to foul play, by the way, so I don't miss. Because Snarl does... Like, I don't need a special attack drop if I can just get a KO. I'm down for it, mainly because of the Scarf Lunala surprise. Okay. They're Dynamaxing Calyrex. I am more than okay with that. Oh, I see what they're going for, though. They're just trying to Phantasm Lunala and then Behemoth Blade or play rough Yveltal. This could actually be a huge problem if I don't KO with foul play, and I'm not confident that I do. Whereas Moongeist Beam Sucker Punch actually would have KO'd Dynamax Calyrex. I should have just considered the option of Dynamax Calyrex a little bit more there. Okay, either way, we get the Scarf Icy Wind off. Here's foul play. Is this a KO? Uh-oh. I could be in some trouble now. Okay, they're going to Phantasm into Lunala. Is that a KO? Nicely done. That's where Snarl actually would have helped, I guess. Yeah, I didn't consider Dynamax Calyrex too much there, and that is going to punish me fairly heavily here. They go for play rough. Okay, that should KO me as well. Yeah. I wonder how bulky the Calyrex is. I actually took that foul play really, really well, honestly. I think we can still mount a comeback, though, but it is going to be, obviously, fairly difficult from this angle. If I had Zacian over Amoonguss here, at least I would outspeed both Pokemon, and that'd be fairly valuable. But if they had Whimsicott, they could just sacrifice something, bring out Whimsicott Tailwind, right? But I think my best bet here is to just try to Dynamax. Warm Wind into Calyrex, and Spore into Zacian. I think with Spore Pressure, we could still definitely mount a comeback here, especially because the Pokemon in the back that they have don't deal super well with Palkia or Amoonguss, but that could have been a game-winning turn 1 if the foul play just KOs, but Calyrex survives that. So I honestly do not know the damage roll of foul play onto Dynamax Calyrex. If I had actually Dynamaxed my Yveltal there, Icy Wind, Max Darkness, that would have just been a KO. That would have been pretty sweet. Breaking Zacian would have worked, or Moongeist Beam plus, or even, Sucker Punch plus Moongeist Beam onto Calyrex would have been a KO as well. But honestly, in my head, I was expecting Calyrex to protect there, not go for a Dynamax. So, yeah. What else could I have done? Yeah, Lunala can't really Trick Room in that angle. Calyrex isn't super good against the duel that my opponent led here. So, I think we had the right lead, honestly. Just maybe needed to play a little bit better. But the thing is, I don't think I have a truly safe play, right? Because, they could easily protect Calyrex there, and then Zacian just gets a huge play rough or Behemoth Blade onto either slot, and that's really bad for me. Okay, we are faster, thanks to the speed drop, though. So that's huge. I get a KO, I get an attack drop, and I put the Zacian to sleep, unless you're substituting here. So, we can definitely mount a comeback still, but critically to note, the Amoonguss here does not have Pollen Pup, so I can't heal the Palkia back, which is kind of tough. So I'll be eating up a fairly strong play rough here, but oh, they actually Behemoth Blade. Okay, that is huge. I think with that, actually, we are definitely still in this game. Because that, yeah, does not do that much damage, and now I put Zacian to sleep. So that Scarf Icy Wind, was huge, and the fact that they didn't max guard or switch out there was really nice, because one thing I was worried about was the potential Shedinja switch in there. I didn't even consider the option of Shedinja when I was talking about the turn, but in the back of my mind, that was one thing I was worried about. And they bring out Kyogre. Okay. Kyogre. Part of the question is, how fast are you relative to us right now? Because you can just Ice Beam Amoonguss for a KO, and that's less than ideal, but they could also just protect. What I want to do here is just max Warm Wind into Kyogre, protect Amoonguss. But I think the problem is I can't get a one-hit KO onto Kyogre here, and Kyogre could easily protect as well. The other question is, what is my opponent's final Pokemon? Zeraora, Shedinja, Whimsicott. Okay, Zacian switches, which honestly I'm okay with. What is that? Shedinja. Okay, this is a really interesting game state, especially because they're not protecting Kyogre here, so I get a Wormwind into that slot as well. And I'm faster. Okay, all of that is really, really good information. It's the ally switch mind game this next turn that I have to get around now. But I think if I can get it correctly, I might just win the game. And they Ice Beam into the protect. Yeah. I mean, is Amoonguss ever surviving an Ice Beam here? Because if so... I don't think so. I really don't think so. I mean, the question is whether or not they ally switch. The obvious play for them is to ally switch, so I almost think they're not going to here. Okay. I am going to make the read that they are going to ally switch. I actually don't hate a double protect here either, because I think, you know, they'd be incentivized to... Okay, and I do get the double. They'd be incentivized to ally switch Ice Beam or just attack Ice Beam. They didn't ally switch. But because of the double protect, maybe we're still in okay shape. Yeah, they doubled up. Oh, no, that's onto Palkia. Okay. Now it's like, do they ally switch this turn? I mean, this is what Shedinja does, right? It just creates these mind games. I don't even know if they have it, truthfully. I'm down to just Spatial Ren here and Spore this turn. This also could be Goggles, though. So, like... I don't hate foul playing here, actually. Because if they're Goggles, we just KO. It'd be, like... this is where, like, if you were in my opponent's shoes, I think it makes so much sense to ally switch because I just called it incorrectly, but maybe they get in their head and they're like, oh, wow, my opponent just tried to make the read that I was going to go for it. But, yeah, Shedinja mind games are always so tough to play around. But we were lucky enough to, like, get the double protect to stay in it as well. So, I was hedging for it, right? I was like, okay, if I... Yeah, there it is. I think the thing that always frustrates me is when I don't see it the first time around, I'm like, do you even have it? But I go 0 for 2 on predicting it, which is frustrating. But yeah, well done by my opponent. I think this is still winnable, by the way, because Palkia is faster than Kyogre. Part of it depends on the item. Like, if you are safety goggles, I could still win this for sure. I'm going to make the read that they're not going to ally switch here and just Ice Beam Poltergeist. Because it's a 3v1, so my opponent's probably incentivized to just deal as much damage as possible. So, yeah. This one was a frustrating one because if I just called it correctly before this turn, I had a very good shot at winning, but I get it wrong both times, which always really stings. And, like, my initial gut instinct was to just not bother reading into ally switch the first time around. Okay, they're going to Poltergeist again. How much does that do? 119 to 65. 119 to 65. With Life Orb here, I don't even think I can afford to take another one. So the other question is, are you Focus Sash or are you... It's definitely Poltergeist and Shadow Sneak as well, right? How many turns of Rain are left is the other problem. There's only one turn. But Zacian hasn't taken any sleep turns, so I'm just going to go for Fire Blast on a Shedinja here. Hope let their safety goggles, and then hope Zacian takes multiple turns of sleep. Okay, Zacian stays asleep. Shedinja did not ally switch. And I miss. Okay. Well, that's Shedinja for you. Yeah. I made the right decision here in the end, but losing 2 turns against Kyogre Shedinja was what really cost me. And yeah, my opponent made the better prediction both times around, so kudos to them. Yeah, that's just the mind game that Shedinja causes. Like, you're just kind of guessing on whether or not they're going to go for it. But yeah, well done on their end. I don't know, though. For how badly turn 1 went, given that I lost both Pokemon, I'm actually fairly happy that, like, I got myself into a position where I could win. And if I get either turn against the Kyogre there correctly, I most likely win. I just wish we could have seen what the item on the Shedinja was there, because if it was Focus Sash, then the miss doesn't matter at all. But if it were Safety Goggles and you have Sash on, one of your Whimsicott or Calyrex, I think Goggles actually makes sense on that team. Then yeah, I would get the KO there. It'd be 1v1 Zacian against Palkia. And then I would essentially probably need a 3-turn sleep there while hitting 2 Hydro Pumps, unless Light Orb Hydro Pump just KOs outside of range, but that's very unlikely going to be the case there. So I think the odds of me winning there are still pretty slim. Even if Fire Blast had connected there, but I just needed to get the 2 turns against Shedinja correct, and fortunately I didn't. But Shedinja is one of the trickiest Pokemon to fight in Sword and Shield in general, thanks to the combination of Wonder Guard plus Ally Switch. So yeah, I just needed to make the better predictions there, but that's one I don't feel too bad on losing. So let's look for one more. Ooh, okay, Kyogre, Groudon, Zapdos, Whimsicott, Incineroar, Zacian. It's almost a Series 12 team, just with one extra restricted. Calyrex is interesting, although the weird thing is by being max speed, I actually might be faster than Groudon. I don't know, I really like leading Lunala Yveltal with this team. I don't know if that's optimal, but it's fun. Lunala Yveltal. Palkia solid. And I think our own Zacian is fine here. I think that the interesting thing with this team is essentially always like, okay, if they bring Whimsicott, I could angle to set up Trick Room with Lunala, but if they don't, I can go with the Icy Wind stuff. But inherently, Lunala Yveltal is fairly weak into opposing Zacians, so maybe I keep bringing this, but like it's not that strong to Zacian just coming out immediately. They go with Incineroar Zacian. Okay. Now, most of the times you're probably fearing Meteor Beam from Lunala, but we know we don't have Meteor Beam. We're Choice Scarf here. So that's interesting. What do I want to do? I think I probably want to max Palkia in this game, so turn 1 I'm down for an Icy Wind plus a Foul Play into their Zacian slot. Because if it's Incineroar, Kyogre, Groudon in the back, Palkia's really strong against all of those. I could even see Incineroar switching out here, but yeah, they're not going to switch. They're not going to fake out, which makes sense. Probably just a Darkest Lariat or a Parting Shot. I could have led Lunala plus my Zacian, or Lunala Palkia probably would have been the best here. Because then I could have just maxed the Palkia, but yeah, I'll take that Foul Play damage on a Zacian any day. Okay, so they're going to Behemoth Blade here. Onto Yveltal, presumably, but it could be a double up onto Lunala. Yep. We survive. Cool. And it is just Darkest Lariat. Yeah. Okay, that works for me. Lunala should survive this. Cool. That works. I'm going to just switch out into Palkia here, I think, and then just Foul Play into the... I mean, Zacian protecting here is actually super duper obvious, right? So I could Oblivion Wing into Incineroar instead, but... I'm down for this. Like, even if they protect the Zacian here and then Incineroar KOs Yveltal, it's fine. And if they just protect and target the Lunala slot, well, then I get a free switch in, which is also fine. But you should know I'm Choice Scarf Lunala now. It is pretty interesting, though, because they went for Behemoth Blade, so if I had Meteor Beam and you weren't Focus Sash on Incineroar, I could have just KO'd Incineroar and gotten a free Foul Play off into the Zacian. So I'm curious about the Incineroar. It could be Assault Vest as well, right? Quick Attack on Zacian here is also a possibility, by the way. They switch out. Fine by me. Kyogre coming in makes a lot of sense. Yep. Okay. So getting free damage onto Kyogre I think is always appreciated, so I'll take that. I think Yveltal's probably fainting here, but that's okay. I'm fairly happy about what it's done in this game. That's great damage on a Kyogre, honestly. And they actually Parting Shot here into Yveltal. Okay. So, like, you can bring Zacian back out now, right? And then they've managed to pivot away the speed drops fairly well. The thing is, Palkia can survive a play rough, even from max attack Zacian from the range that I'm at, but not with any chip damage. Yeah, I mean, I think the play I'm most inclined to go for here is just to protect and Foul Play. What I'm really looking for is the Yveltal to faint so that I get a free switch into a Scarf Lunala, and then I can continue going for Icy Wind. They don't max Kyogre. Okay, Play Rough goes into Palkia, though, which is a really good sight to see. And I'm faster. That's huge. I mean, I just get a knockout onto the Zacian slot. That's amazing. Zacian was by far the biggest threat to my Dynamax Palkia in this matchup. They Thunder. Cool, that works. So now I can bring Lunala back out, right? And with Lunala, you can't click Fake Out with the Incineroar, so I can just use that to click Icy Wind, which is really good, ensuring Palkia outspeeds Kyogre and Groudon, even if those are max speed. So, yeah, this is just the nice thing about having a Choice Scarf Lunala on the team. Scarf Icy Wind is like, feels kind of weird, but in a best of one, and in a format where speed is really the name of the game, it's so strong. Okay, so it's Groudon and Kyogre now against Lunala and Palkia. Drought is kind of awkward for them here as well. They should probably look towards Dynamaxing Groudon. I think here I'm content Dynamaxing, Wormwinding into Kyogre and just Icy Winding. Icy Wind just ensures I'm outspeeding everything in this late game. Kyogre could protect here. I think that's probably the only concern. And of course, Groudon can boost its special defense, but with each attack droplet we get onto it means that Zacian just has a better endgame against it. Now, one thing to consider is that the Zacian doesn't have a fighting type attack, so I don't definitively just beat the Incineroar, right? I could misplay Rough, for example. But I think right now we have the speed advantage. We have Choice Scarf Icy Wind, which is really nice as well. And they are going to stay in with both Pokemon, so no switch into Incineroar, which makes sense. I think conserving it for the Zacian I have in the back is actually really smart. If I'm them, I'm actually protecting Kyogre and Quaking Lunala here pretty much every time. But because the Palkia has the special attack drops, I think even if that is the case, it's not too bad for us. We might want to consider Geysing on our last turn of Dynamax, though. Ooh, but they don't protect the Kyogre. I think that gives me a pretty huge advantage. Although, now I'm wondering if Max Wormwind actually KOs Kyogre from that range. If they're Assault Vested. Okay, for a second I thought it was Weakness Policy Groudon. I was like, oh no. The odds of that are so slim, but... Oh, Kyogre does survive, but it confirms Assault Vest, which is good to know. Okay, that's a pretty big deal for them. But the nice thing is because the Icy Wind consumed the White Herb, and now the Wormwind actually goes through, so I'll take that at least. They do Quake into Palkia. Okay. If Kyogre does not KO Lunala here, they're in some trouble, I think. Let's see. Yeah, they do go for Icy Wind. Or, sorry, Ice Beam. Okay, makes sense. Okay. Well, now I know you're not Assault Vest on Groudon. But I think just max Wormwinding Kyogre here. But we know you're Assault Vest Kyogre. Like, I could Geyser here to change the weather, right? But Wormwind gets another attack drop onto the Groudon, so max Wormwind into the Kyogre. And Behemoth Blade into that slot feels fine. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Because you can't protect right now. Yep, so they switch. Totally okay with me. This is also awkward for my opponent because now you're changing the weather, right? So Blade plus Wormwind should be a KO onto Incineroar. As long as Zacian does not get crit, Groudon's at -2 attack, so it shouldn't KO either of my Pokemon. Yeah, you get another special defense boost, but then Palkia comes back out and they max guard. Yeah, this is the only way I think I could lose the game, which is if I doubled up onto the Groudon slot. We now know the Groudon doesn't have Assault Vest because we saw the White Herb, and we also could judge based off Kyogre's HP and how well it took the attacks previously that it was Assault Vested. So given that, it's always safe to double up into Kyogre, right? Because if they stay in, okay, Behemoth Blade just KOs them, and then the max Wormwind gets redirected into the Groudon slot. If the Kyogre switches out into Incineroar, then we get the KO like we just did. And in this position, the worst case would have been Groudon attacking, but because Groudon's at -2 attack, it should knock out either of my Pokemon, barring a critical hit. So this covers for everything other than a crit from Groudon, I think. Yep, and so now they bring Kyogre back out, but it is very awkward for them because now you have changed the weather as well. Groudon's at -2 attack. Yep, +1 special defense. We know Kyogre can't protect in this situation, so... Yeah, I don't know if a Geyser KOs here, but I guess I'm curious. Even if it doesn't, we should just win the game. So I'm down to just Geyser here into Groudon and Behemoth Blade into Kyogre. The only other way we could lose this game is if they went for a double max guard, and we doubled up onto Groudon. So it's good to just split our damage there because we know Kyogre can't really do anything in that position. So yeah. I think the Scarf Lunala is just so interesting with Icy Wind in general, right? It gives us a pretty major advantage in terms of speed control. And this game was interesting where I was able to use the Scarf Icy Wind to then like get a foul play off onto Yveltal, or from Yveltal into Zacian before it could attack us. The idea is, okay, well, if you KO the Yveltal there, I would get a free switch it into Palkia, and if not, then yeah, I get to hang around for a little bit longer. So this team is definitely really interesting. I think it's not the easiest to execute because like Scarf Lunala can be really good, or it can just like provide very little value. But we've seen like how it can catch our opponents off guard, right? So that's definitely a fun set of games. Thanks so much as always for watching. If you enjoyed, please share support by leaving a like in the video, and I'll catch you all next time. All right, peace.